my father warned me about the voices.
This is long but is really a true story. I was kicked out of my mother's house at 18 and went to live with my uncle and father in Selma, Alabama. It was an old house that belonged to my grandmother before she passed. My folks used to tell me stories when I was younger about the house, saying it was haunted and was once a slave house. Selma has a history of slavery and even was once called Slave City, so I believe the stories. There was even a rumor that a witch lived in the house before my grandmother. It's also rumored that my grandmother's brother even dated a woman who was said to be a witch, and she put candles around the doorsteps with a chicken with its head cut off in the middle. I've had family members tell me about their stories of seeing and hearing paranormal activity around the house, but at this point I had never witnessed anything, so I thought they were all just superstitious and paranoid. After a while, I move into my father's old room, and he warns me that one day I'll start hearing voices. I had a dog at the time, and he even warned me that one day soon my dog would die. His exact words were more cryptic than that though. He said, "They'll either kill you or the dog." I laughed, thinking he was joking. He told me that my aunt was secretly a witch and that I couldn't trust my uncle. He also told me that if something starts calling for you to come outside the room at strange times, it's not real. I laughed at him even more than because I remembered other family members saying he was crazy and talked to himself sometimes. Despite his claims, everything seemed okay for a while. One day, I was preparing to leave Selma for a job interview in Montgomery. My aunt saw me dressed up and asked where was I headed. I told my aunt, who was living there at the time too, that I was going to take a nap and was heading to Montgomery afterward for a job interview. Hours later, I walked out of the house to find that my front tire was slashed. All of a sudden, my aunt appeared out of nowhere and asked what happened. This was strange to me. She was acting unusual, but I didn't question it. Luckily, I had a spare in the back of my Jeep. I fed my dog and left for Montgomery. It was dark when I came back to Selma hours later. My uncle said that my dog was dead and he didn't know what happened to it, and that they had already buried him too. I felt some type of way about my dog mysteriously dying. So I asked my aunt's kids who were always outside playing what happened, and one of the kids told me that they beat the dog and kicked it in the N***s until it stopped moving. I had never heard this child talk like this. And he was serious about it. Didn't blink or laugh while saying this. At this point, I knew something was wrong with my folks. My father randomly came over to the house the next day. Before I could say anything about the dog, he said, "I told you they were gonna kill it." He also said that he saw my uncle talking to some Mexicans who were known for doing voodoo when he passed by late last night. Again, I laughed it off because my father was always a joker. But deep inside, I was very worried. The next day, as soon as I woke up, I had this weird, unrealistic feeling. Then I heard my father call my name from outside the house. He called me by a nickname that he used to call me as a kid when we first lived in my grandmother's house. I was about to go out when I remembered what he said: "If something starts calling for you to come outside the room at strange times, it's not real." I paused for a few seconds, then swung the door open. No one was there. It was very early in the morning. My father was more than likely at work. 2 days later, I woke up at 3 a.m. Walked outside the house because I felt weird. As I walked around the outside of the house, I heard sounds like birds swooping over my head. When I looked up, I saw nothing but black shadows flying everywhere. I looked to the sky, and the moon was so close to the earth that it might as well be a giant eyeball staring right at me. A few days after that, the people from the job interview called back and said I got the job. I was supposed to start next week. Later that night, I felt a presence in the room with me as I tried to sleep. It felt negative, so I put my headphones in and played some positive music. Even with the music playing, the presence felt like it was getting stronger and stronger. Somehow, my left earbud fell out of my ear, and I heard a dog/wolf growling in the room. I could even feel the vibration of the growling. Later in the week, I was preparing to leave the house so I could live with family in Montgomery for the job. I had gathered all my things and was ready to go. I sat back on the bed to get a short rest before I hit the road. All of a sudden, it sounded like something was running up to the side of the bed and then grabbed my hair and yanked it. The force literally almost pulled me off the side of the bed. I left at that moment and never been back since.